You're listening to the Packernet Podcast Network.
U.S. Cellular has noticed the way we use our phones has gotten ironic. We try to put our phones down for dinner, but the menu's on a QR code. That's ironic. We hit like on social posts that we don't actually like, which is ironic. Which is why U.S. Cellular created Us Mode, to help us reconnect with each other and use our phones less ironically. A phone company wanting people to use their phones less is ironic. Let's find us again with Us Mode from U.S. Cellular. Visit uscellular.com/built-for-us to get started.
You're a podcast listener, and this is a podcast ad. Reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Lips and Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a reproduced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience with Lips and Ads. Go to lipsandads.com now. That's LIBSYN ads.com.
You feel this nervousness on the phone there?
Sir, I've been trying to make an urgent phone call up there.
Well, I don't think it's something I want to do on an overseas phone.
You gotta make some phone calls. Hang up the phone. Prank caller.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Packernet After Dark. This is the call-in show with the Packernet Podcast Network. If you'd like to call in, if you'd like to participate in the show, please feel free to do so. The phone number here is 608-501-0718. New callers go directly to the front of the line. We don't have any new callers, but we do have Garrett from Southern Illinois. What's going on?
Hey, Ryan, it's Garrett from Southern Illinois.
What's up?
I just have one question about last night's game. Can we be unburdened by what has been?
Oh, here we go.
I really just can't shake off the poor, I guess we would just say, performance by how those guys played last night. I know it was second string versus first string for the most part. Just the momentum from start to finish just seemed really lackluster. The effort, all in all, they just really did not come to play. And I just have a strong feeling about, that carries over into the next practice. It carries over into the next game. And I personally think it was a bad decision not to play the starters at least one series. I know that they successfully got out of that game without having any major injuries except for the concussion with Goforth. But I'm just a firm believer in, it's football. You got to go out there and play. And whether you want to try to protect your players or not, when they are not sharp, when they are not executing, and they're being beaten in practice and in a preseason game, I just feel like that's a coaching mistake. And that is just my opinion. It's just my opinion that, LaFleur mentioned that, they after the game in the interview, that was not up to standard. Well, it was not up to standard because you didn't play your starters. You didn't put your best foot forward. You didn't, clearly, it was a vanilla offense and a vanilla defense. At least that was your intention, but it looked more like Rocky Road. It was just ugly to watch.
Rocky Road.
It was ugly to watch. And,
it's good.
There's others who say, don't overreact during a preseason game. Well, I don't feel like it's overreacting when it's more or less, you're preparing for the next game. And that just didn't seem like they made any progress in showing me who's going to be the second string quarterback or, for that matter, any other position. So it is what it is, but it was pitiful. Made me want to vomit.
Well, I get what you're saying. I guess the only points of pushback that I would have, number one, I think if we did start our starters, they would have got the crap beat out of them. That's the dirty little secret that we try not to talk about here, as we blame the fact that it was our backups against their starters. If practice was any indication, we'd have put our starters out there. They would have got the crap beat out of them, and then we'd really have something to complain about. And again, I do think the larger issue was that it was a lackluster performance. I mean, again, it's not a matter of we're not talented enough, even for the backups. Right? Because you got things happening that just haven't really been an issue. Even Clifford throwing a pick is not really the standard. Right? I mean, we started off the game with a botched snap. Clifford throws his first pick in 3 weeks. We got DeBose dropping passes, which he doesn't do. We got numerous missed tackles on like one play. I counted, I think, 4 or 5 guys missing tackles, which has not been an issue for this defense the entire time. So That is, I think, the biggest acceptable gripe. I think the only pushback on that is it would be worth noting, and I don't know the answer because I don't watch all 32 teams every single week. I do think discipline is an important part of being a successful team, but I also know everybody has days like that, and it's just kind of a question of who can minimize those and who can kind of correct those and learn from those, because I do think that's been a big problem for the Packers for a long time, even predating Matt LaFleur, is being these powerhouse regular season teams that gets into the playoffs and then at some point just says, I don't feel like doing this anymore. And then they just play not their best game. They just play a bad game. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know we can't expect perfection, and I know that it certainly is ridiculous to expect perfection from second, third, fourth string guys in a preseason game. But you certainly hope that the coach acknowledges the issue, which I'm sure he does, which is it's not just about the fact that our second stringers lost to their first stringers. It's also just that this was kind of a wasted opportunity, right? Like you said, we didn't really get any clarity on anything, which is to the detriment of the people that are outside of that bubble right now. But it's kind of a wasted opportunity because this is a time to get better, and everybody just seemed to take the week off. Now, there's a lot of variables involved here. Maybe they got pushed a little bit too hard and they were a little bit more worn out than Denver. I don't know. I don't know the situation, and then you throw them in the environment with less oxygen, so they're just not able to play at 100%, which does take some time to get acclimated to. I don't want to make stupid excuses. I'm just saying there's a lot of variables at play here, and we do know that this has been a problem for the Packers in the past. I would just not overreact to the point of saying that we know, therefore, that this is going to be a problem for a very long time. Again, this happened last year, and the Packers were significantly better than the team that they struggled against in the preseason. And you can say, yeah, but we didn't show up against the 49ers. I'll be honest, the 49ers didn't show up in that game either. They just ended up with the higher score at the end of that game. Neither team showed up. They both played like crap. So, I mean, I don't know. It happens. I do think the reason that the Chiefs keep winning Super Bowls is because they're one of the few teams that really just doesn't have those kinds of days. And when they do, it seems like by halftime, they kind of snap out of it and come back and play at 150% and win the game. So I do think it's an important thing. I don't know what the answer is, but I do think it's kind of the default. I think the default tends to be having bad days as opposed. I mean, let's be honest about Dallas here. I mean, the Packers definitely showed up, but that's a team that dominated the regular season. Maybe the best, or certainly one of the best teams all year, with a quarterback that you could argue was the best in the entire NFL. Him and Brock Purdy were right up there for the 2023 season. And they got walloped by the Packers. And that was only 50% of the equation was the Packers showing up. The other was the Dallas Cowboys not playing like they had the entire year. So those things happen. I don't know why they happen, and it's an important thing to minimize that, but it's also important to not overly dramatize that, I guess. All right, we are all caught up on new calls. I'm going to go back in time quite a bit here because we got two different bunches that got skipped. So we'll go back to the oldest bunch and start working our way back until we get some newer calls here.
Hi, Rye.
Hey.
You like it when people say Rye? Like, does that bother you, or is that okay?
No, Rye is a very common name, and it was always like your grandparents or whatever, they called you Rye or rye bread. So definitely not offensive. That's like comfort food. The only problem is that I have a daughter named Riley, and my wife calls her Rye, but she also calls me Rye. I think she does that just to be, annoying. But that would be the only issue with Rye at this point in time. But no issue with Rye whatsoever.
I always wondered that. You don't like Brian.
No,
what if I just said, hey, Rye?
Rye's fine.
Is that...
Especially coming from...
Is that okay?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah, so I was watching the Green Bay Roku channel YouTube channel. I was on YouTube. And I was watching the Josh Jacobs... Sorry, I'm getting ice. Wait for it. Yeah, that's too slow. I watched Josh Jacobs' locker room interview, and he had mentioned how in 2019 he contacted Marshawn Lloyd and said, hey, I like your game. Really? So you contacted Marshawn Lloyd in 2019, and now here you both are on the same team. Boom! Marshawn Lloyd's my rookie. He's the one. I've now picked him. That was just kind of really cool. And he was in the mix, too. Nobody has really jumped out to me this year. So when that happened, I'm like, you know what? I'm doing it. It's Marshawn Lloyd. That's my rookie to watch for this year. I'm not making any grand proclamations or anything like that. There's no stats that I think he's going to make. I just, Josh Jacobs likes his game. I think we'll all like his game. That's all I got. Okay, bye.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is cool to hear, but I'm guessing he saw whatever Gutekunst saw. You know what I mean? Which is certainly encouraging to have a running back watch a guy in college and be like, dude, you're freaking good at football, man. Now, for all I know, he sent that out to 15 different running backs. I don't know, but it is very cool that he is respected as a. To be at the level where NFL players are messaging you saying you're special. You know what I mean? That's an encouraging thing to hear.
Hey, Ryan, it's Aaron, calling from Eau Claire.
What's up, man?
So thinking about our team this year, I'm trying to think of what the team's weakest position is. And I can't necessarily think of any position that's truly abysmal. Hopefully we fix safety with Xavier McKinney and some draft picks, or at least improve safety. Corner seems solid, although a couple injuries would change that. That's any team, I think.
Yeah.
Linebackers seem solid. Maybe the biggest question mark on defense. And then the front, pass rushers and D-line look great. Then on offense, I guess running back is a bit of a question since Josh Jacobs hasn't been on our team for very long. Dylan's always been a bit of an enigma. And then beyond that, some kind of unproven guys, or relatively unproven guys. So maybe running back. And then obviously receiver is pretty good. With the chance to be very, very, very good. Tight end. If these guys stay healthy, I think they have a chance to be very good. Maybe O-line has some faulty pieces. And then obviously quarterback is very good, assuming Jordan's good again. But yeah, it's hard to find a true dud at any position that's truly a dud on this year's team, and that's really what makes me most optimistic. Is obviously no team is perfect top to bottom, blue chip players at every spot, but the way that they are constructed, I have a lot of hope that they can be very solid all across the board, and that's really what I think I want out of the team, is just kind of a solid offense, solid defense, with some really high upside. So hopefully that means good things, but let me know what you think.
Yeah, I mean, the standard answer generally is offensive line, but I think to your point about, if we don't look at it in terms of a lack of depth and just look at it in terms of a lack of just pure talent, the offensive line really is not that bad. I mean, it's almost the exact same offensive line as last year, with hopefully an upgrade at right guard. I mean, I don't want to just go through all the positions all over again. You already covered them, but I think at least there's questions at offensive line, and the defense, there's quite a few questions with the new defensive system. I think the biggest one's probably linebacker. I want to like Quay, but he has to prove that he's going to be an asset. We have no idea about Edgerrin Cooper. He has hardly even practiced. Same with Tyron Hopper and everybody else. So there's a lot of questions there. But in terms of, as I look at it, I go, this just needs to be overturned. I mean, I still think the offensive line has to be the answer, because that's the only place I can look at and say, I think we should upgrade Josh Myers at the very least, and then at least have a conversation maybe about Rashid at left tackle. We'll see how he does in year 2. I obviously we have to assume Jordan's going to be a good enough answer at right guard. Zach Tom's good. Elton Jenkins is the answer, whether you're super stoked or just moderately okay. I don't think that there's really anywhere else that I can look at and say, yeah, I think we're going to have to overhaul that. Again, linebacker is a question mark, because there's nobody there that I look at and go, yeah, there's quality players there. Quay has shown potential, but has not been a premier player. Same with McDuffie. We all like him. He's a good tackler and run defense and all that stuff, but hasn't really proven to be just a solid asset across the board. So I guess those would be my thoughts, but we're going to have to just let this season play out, see how guys do, especially on defense in the new defensive system, et cetera, and then go from there. But why don't we take our first break? We'll come back. We've got several more calls here from Aaron, 2 more, Uncle Rico, and then we'll see where we're at from there. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
You're a podcast listener, and this is a podcast ad. Reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Lips and Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a reproduced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience with Lips and Ads. Go to lipsandads.com now. That's LIBSYN ads.com. You're a podcast listener, and this is a podcast ad. Reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Lips and Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a reproduced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience with Lips and Ads. Go to lipsandads.com now. That's LIBSYN ads.com. You're a podcast listener, and this is a podcast ad. Reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Lips and Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a reproduced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience with Lips and Ads. Go to lipsandads.com now. That's LIBSYN ads.com. You're a podcast listener, and this is a podcast ad. Reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Lips and Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a reproduced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience with Lips and Ads. Go to lipsandads.com now. That's LIBSYN ads.com.
Hey, Ryan. I was just listening to you talk about being kind of forgetting events throughout your day, or and forgetting stuff that's on your calendar. It resonated so much with me that I wanted to call and comment on it because I have always struggled with this ever since I was in high school. Keeping a calendar, keeping details straight, showing up on the wrong time, showing up the wrong day sometimes, stuff like that. And I have, definitely suffered the consequences at different times. And then I have also learned some ways to improve the situation. And one of the ways that I go to for help with this is setting an alarm on my phone manually if I'm worried at all that I will miss something. So, for example, let's say I have to leave the house at 3 to get to a meeting or an appointment at 3:30. So I'll leave the house at 3, but I'll set my alarm for 2:50 or 2:45. And that way, the alarm goes off. I have a couple snoozes that I can hit so that I can procrastinate for 10 more minutes. And then I have a little bit of leeway to get ready and get mentally prepared and then get out the door. So that for me has been the best solution, is just when the thought occurs to me, like, okay, in 2 hours I have something I have to be at. I know, knowing me, that I'm going to forget or that I'm going to lose track of time. And so in order to not worry about it too much, I'll just set that alarm, 15 minutes before the event itself, or before I have to leave, or before I have to do something. And that way, I can turn my brain off and not worry about it, but still be confident that I'm going to be alerted at the right time. So obviously that it's just more of building a habit, but I still miss stuff, and I've missed some very important things that have come to bite me. So anyways, but I relate.
I think, let's just see if the next one kind of, here, I'll just let you finish up here.
Hey Ryan, just finished up my call. Yeah, so I relate. I'm right there with you, and have had different seasons where it's bit me harder. And it always feels so bad, when you forget something. And it's usually the busier you are, the more likely it is that something gets slipped under the rug and you forget about it. And so anyways, I definitely have struggled with that. I've definitely dealt with that, and it's one of these things that I continually have to try to improve at. And the other thing is, like, I got tested for ADHD, and I was kind of a borderline. They told me I was a borderline case, but I'm pretty sure I have at least plenty of ADHD symptoms.
Sure.
So for me, it's like just almost treating it like a condition you kind of have to manage. Now, I don't know if everyone's that way, but for me, at least, if I can kind of say, hey, this is something I'm going to have to get better at, and continue to manage, and continue to know my tendency to lose track of time and lose track of the days and all that stuff. That helps me. So anyways, not that I have any true answers or that I've figured anything out, but I just really appreciated that you shared all that, because I feel like a lot of people struggle with this, but I think most people are maybe afraid to admit it out of fear of appearing, negatively in other people's eyes or something. I know sometimes I can feel that way. So, anyways, appreciate it. And you're doing a great job. So keep it up.
Appreciate you, dude. Yeah, and it is funny you mentioned that because it's like, do you think you have ADHD or ADD or whatever? It's like, well, I don't know. I don't know what everybody else in the world goes through, right? I don't know. I mean, obviously, there's just a spectrum of people in terms of their ability to concentrate and focus and all that kind of stuff. And there's also factors of just like how you order yourself and your diet and everything else. I don't know. Maybe this is normal and everybody goes through it. They just suck it up and deal with it. Or maybe I've just been sucking it up and dealing with it where most people have got it addressed and got it taken care of. I have no idea. I did go to a doctor once when I was going to college the second time around when I went to a tech school, and I'm like, I need help because I can't have an experience like I had before. It was so bad. I mean, I'm staring at the teacher and I'm thinking to myself, like, pay attention, listen, pay attention to what she's. I have no idea what the teacher's. I can't listen. And didn't give me any tests or anything. It was just like, yeah, sounds kind of like it. So anyways, here's some medicine. I'm like, all right. And then I don't even know what happened. I stopped taking it or something. I don't remember. But that was a very short-lived thing. I think the medicine probably needed to be adjusted, or because when I first started it, it was very helpful. I remember it was like overly powerful. And I remember at one point, like being in a trance, it almost felt like, and I was getting worked. It was like tunnel vision. It was like, oh, this is pretty dope. And then that stopped happening, and probably should have just talked to the doctor and got it tweaked or whatever, but I just never did, and that was the end of that. But yeah, as far as like setting alarms, that is what I have to do. I actually just did that recently. I had an interview with our lads. Maybe that's where this came from. I don't remember if I told the story or not, but just completely blanked on it. There was a time change issue, but still, it was like I just had a heart attack. And so this time around, I set 4 alarms. I set an early one just to make sure I didn't go start something else and that I could be back in time if I was somewhere else, like an hour before, and then 45 minutes, 30 minutes, 15 minutes before. I kept setting the alarms because, I could set it for 30 minutes out, and then within that span of time, I'll go do something else and forget. So it's I remember in high school, I used to actually, because I'd put notes up. Well, I'm not going to look at the notes. So I had to I would take the garbage can and put it in the hallway. So if I walked to my room, walked to the bathroom, walked to the kitchen, there would always be like this moment where it's like, why is there oh yeah. So it's not that I forget what the thing is, it's that I forget that there's a thing. And then as soon as I see the garbage can, it's like, oh yeah, I was supposed to do that. It just kind of is a reminder. So you got to have those kinds of things. Like, why is this thing in my way? Oh, it reminds me I got to do that thing. So yeah, I don't know, man. Who knows? Whatever. It is what it is. Figure it out, I guess. How we doing on time here? Uncle Rico, what's up?
Yo, Ryan, it's your Uncle Rico.
What's going on?
I was just listening to a little bit of Clayton there, and those guys, Jacob and whatnot, and they're talking about bringing in all these kickers and what that means. And what it means is that Joseph and Carlson couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat. Jeepers, come on, guys. Let's get some consistency here. And hopefully one of these guys, they bring, I'd love it if Anders Carlson could make his kicks, but clearly he can't. I want him as our kicker, but dude, hit the uprights. No, don't hit him. Split the uprights. Hopefully one of these nobodies they brings in here is just the man, and the only way we're going to find the man is by bringing guys in, so keep bringing them in. Bring every kicker in they can find. Go hit the streets. I don't know what to do, but we can't be missing kicks. All right, go kickers, go.
Yeah, one thing I hadn't really thought about, but since everybody really wants to have the discussion about kickers, it's not worthwhile because Anders is going to be our kicker, but people are going to want to have the conversation to look at some of the guys in preseason. Right, because it's a question of like, well, who's even available? Because there's not going to be a lot of great options out there. And then of the kickers that are doing well, those are the guys that are probably going to stay on those teams, right? So you got to find somebody that's got like 2 really good kickers. The problem is, for example, when I look at it, well, who's hit 100% of their kicks? There's 22 of them, which is not enough for all 32 teams plus additional. The other problem is that Anders Carlson is one of them. So, there's not a lot of information here. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of information, so you have to dig in a little bit, find out if there's any other really close competitions out there, or if there's just anybody randomly floating around for some reason. You would feel like if there's a really good kicker option, he would have got picked up by one of these teams that's unsure of their kicking situation. But, there's actually just, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42 kickers right now. So there's not even that many kicking competitions going on, if we're being honest about it. So I will I'm probably not going to put a massive amount of work into that, but I will try to keep that in mind as we go through this, see if there's any other kicking competitions and if there's anybody that has, which, by the way, is exactly what we did when we got a punter. Remember that from the Rams? They had this really studly young guy, and they went with the old guy. And it was like, are you kidding me? And we gave up draft capital to go get the young punter. And then I forgot who it was, but he was here for like a year, and then everybody hated him, and we got rid of him. So I don't know, man. It's just the way she goes. What else you got, Uncle Rico?
Follow-up comment from Uncle Rico.
Yeah.
Greg Joseph, yeah. If the guy were worth having on a team, he'd be on a team. He's been on 3 teams. He can't stick on a team. He can't kick. Good enough, anyways. He can kick, for sure, but not good enough. That's all I got to say. Everybody's like, not everybody, a lot of people are like, oh, Greg Joseph's pretty good. Well, if he was any good, he'd be on a team.
Right.
That's pretty clear. We need a kicker that don't miss.
Not a belly
Ryan,
itcher, right?
Put on the cleats, bro. Let's go.
I think part of the issue, too, is a lot of fans operate in too small of a context window, if that's the right way to say that, right? Like Grant DeBose is the answer, and then Grant DeBose is a bust because he sucks, and Bo Melton is good enough to be like a number 1, and then Bo Melton drops some passes, and now he's going to be off the team, and like we're excited about Anders Carlson, and then because he didn't miss any kicks for like the first 6 days of training camp, and then he missed 2 kicks, and then everybody wanted him off the team, and he was just the worst piece of crap in the world. And then Greg Joseph was going to be the answer because he hadn't missed as many kicks. He missed a couple, but not nearly as many. And then in his last preseason game, he missed the field goal, and now nobody wants him. And it's like, guys, we got to calm down a little bit. You know, I mean, if this is the way we ran football teams, I mean, we would have probably cut Aaron Rodgers in like 2013 or something. You'd had a bad day and be like, you know what, I'm sick of this. Get him out of here, freaking idiot. 2015 for sure. Yeah, Mason Crosby would have been cut twice prior to this last time leaving the team if it was up to Packer fans. There has to be some level of patience and, sometimes just accepting the situation. I think the best option probably is ride with Anders Carlson and see if you can continue to develop him. Because at least with that, there is a chance that he could become good. You take a guy like Greg Joseph, who's demonstrated what he is for 5 years, going on 6 years, and thinking we're suddenly going to flip him into this great kicker, as opposed to Anders, who was handpicked by the team for whatever qualities they really liked in him that they're trying to develop. I mean, am I 50% or greater sure that he's going to be a good kicker? Heck no. I'm sitting at like 20% maybe. But what would you like to do? What is the alternative? Should we throw a second-round pick at Buffalo and go get Tyler Bass? Like, what do you want to do? There's no options. So, and we're not alone in this. Everybody's got kickers that miss kicks. And that's just the way it goes. I mean, we had rough patches with Mason several years. It's just how she goes, man. All right, let's take our final break. We'll come back. We got JJ, Trevor, and Garrett coming up.
All right, so I just got done listening to you rant about the Eberflus winning habits speech. And I had an epiphany that I want to share with you.
Okay.
See, Matt Eberflus is well aware that his team isn't going to win jack this year. Probably not next year either. So I think he's just trying to sort of capture what the Lions were able to capture, where, hey, they're not winning games and they suck, but they still believe in themselves. And so he knows his team is about to be garbage because he's with them every day in practice, and he knows that it ain't good. So, my little theory, my epiphany here, he wants to be able to, at the end of another brutal loss, crappy season, he wants to be able to look his guys in the eyes and say, you know what, forget the record, forget the scoreboard, you are winners in my heart because of your winning habits.
That's right.
So I think that's all he's got. I think it's the only thing he's got in his coaching toolbox.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense, because why else would you do that unless you're laying the groundwork for, please don't implode the second we get off to a rough patch, right? As soon as things don't go well, I need something to fall back on, and that is, hey, listen, as long as you've got the habits in place, the winning will follow. Just trust me, just hang in there. So I think that makes sense. That, or the guy's just kind of a dummy, which also is a possibility.
Hey, Ryan, from Virginia.
What's up?
Somebody called, said they're going up to Lambeau Field this year. I'm jealous. It's been over 10 years since I've been up there. But anyway, they were asking for recommendations in the area. I know it's been a long time, but when we went, when you go do the Hall of Fame, you got to go to the 1919 Kitchen and Tap, which is in the atrium there of Lambeau Field, and get yourself the cheese curds, and you will not be disappointed. Best cheese curds around. They're fried cheese curds, but they're very good. I highly recommend. I guess the only other recommendation I have is, you obviously got to go to the Oval Office. I'm highly recommended by Kay Adams, so got to check out the Oval Office. Go Pack Go.
All right, well, I will have to check those out at some point. I remember somebody, I forget who it was, I think it was the Underage Packers podcast group, when that was a thing, did the tour of the best cheese curds or whatever. I think they went there. I don't remember what the results were, but yeah, I have heard that they have very, very good cheese curds there. So would be interesting to try that out. I haven't had, I guess, a ton of cheese curds from a lot of different places. I mean, obviously you got Culver's or whatever. They're at these places, but it's not like, like everybody's got like a favorite pizza place or a burger joint or wherever. I haven't really thought about like the best cheese. They're all just kind of, I don't want to say something blasphemous, but they're all more or less the same in my opinion. But I'm sure that's just because I haven't had really good cheese curds. Let's just leave it at that. Garrett, what's going on?
Hey, Ryan, it's Garrett from Southern Illinois. So I watched a couple of video clips last night and training camp, and I have to say I watched one where it was Halfley working with the cornerbacks. First one, it was Stokes, and they had him lined up in front of the sled, and he was showing them how to get off the ball, so to speak, when, say, the receiver releases.
Mm-hmm.
He was teaching them how to basically, do this kind of push off with their right leg. And I have to say, I'm really impressed with his hands-on communication with that certain video, because he gets in there and he shows them how to do it. He lets them do it, and he gives them some more feedback. And it just gives me a feeling of confidence that, all in all, the defensive backs are going to be better. I think you can't spend this much time deliberately, with the defensive backs, and it clearly is something new to them. because it really didn't seem like it was something that they were familiar with.
Right.
At least with the way that they were, stepping up and doing it. Maybe he was just tweaking some things, of course, but whatever he's tweaking seems to be what I would classify as, the next level of a defensive back sticking with a wide receiver. And like I said, to reiterate, it gives me a lot of confidence knowing that I think this defense is going to make some huge strides in how they are going to play this year. Because if they're paying attention to detail like this, then I think there's only room to improve in ways that we've never seen them play. So watch out. The defense is going to be good. The pack is back, just like Josh says.
Yeah, and it almost feels silly because you think, well, obviously every defensive coordinator is super thorough and super in-depth and everything, but it's like, well, we've seen a lot of practices. And I know there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, not just in practice or whatever, but I mean, we've watched them practice. We've never seen it this detail-oriented for how they want to teach technique. So, I mean, yeah, it also gives me confidence that it just is a more detail-oriented, hands-on approach to, not just the schematics of it, but, everything down to not just, hey, we're playing press on this, but here's how you play press. I know that you learned it in high school and in college and everything else, but I'm going to teach you very specifically the way that I want you to do it. He's even talked about his specific press technique and how it's different than what most people will teach. So even guys that run a very similar scheme, he still has to reteach them how to do it because he does it differently. He has a different philosophy on how you handle certain situations. So I'm very happy that he's such a nerd about it, and he's very very philosophical in terms of what he wants to do and why he wants to do it, and then being able to convey that to everybody. So we'll see, man. I mean, I don't know. The defense might be amazing. It might suck. I don't know. But I'm happy that I'm just happy that this is the way that it's being done, because this is how it feels like it should be done. Now it's just a matter of, is it going to materialize, which, fingers crossed, we finally have a good defense. It almost feels impossible. Like, I just kind of refuse to believe it at this point, but why not us, man? Why not us?
Hey, Ryan, just finishing up listening to today's podcast, and you happened to mention how you have a tendency of missing appointments and, meetups, and I just wanted to suggest that maybe you get a smartwatch if you don't have one already.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to get a different one. I use the Garmin Tactics Bravo for the Sheriff's Department because I can receive phone calls and text messages on my phone and alerts, even if I'm, a good little distance away from my phone. It is a great, great tool to have on your wrist. And if you do not have a smartphone watch, then I suggest you get one. So it may help, and you never know when you're going to need it. So kind of like a newer, better version of that commercial you used to see for grandparents, where the person falls down and they have this little necklace around or wristwatch button they push when they say, help, and I've fallen and I can't get up.
Yep.
But it's much better. So as we get old and we near that time where our brains aren't functioning like they should, not saying you have Alzheimer's, but maybe you have half-Zimers. Maybe you're just halfway there. So
Some-Zimers.
Put down the monster drinks, drink something healthy, and get a smartwatch. I'm out.
Yeah, I think I'd even reference that. It would be nice to have something like that. Maybe that's just what I got to do. It's kind of like setting an alarm, but just buzzes my watch, so it buzzes my arms. Just something to kind of jolt me and be like, oh yeah, I got that thing. I think that would be ideal. Problem is, I just, I got to actually follow through with setting the times and everything. because that's what I'm not going to want to do. It's like, you got a calendar, why don't you use it? It's like, I don't freaking know, dude. No. I don't feel like it, I guess. I don't know why I don't do things that I don't do. But you just got to do it. Just like you said with the alarms on the phone. It'd be super annoying to have to set multiple alarms per day for each individual little thing, but if that's what it takes, then I guess that's what you got to do.
Winning does not make you a winner.
Right.
Supporting a winner makes you a Packers fan.
Yeah.
Losing doesn't make you a loser.
Mm-hmm.
Supporting a loser makes you a Bears fan.
And on that note, I think we're going to call it. You guys have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.